Welcome to Health Oddity, the show that strips away the jargon and hype surrounding all things health and fitness to help you live a long, strong and energetic life. Lining up at the bar this week, here's Peter Lant and James St. Pierre.
Hello and welcome to the Health Oddity podcast, episode 257. Now, if you are watching on YouTube and Pete and I look slightly less sprightly than usual, it's because it's... Sorry, go on, Pete.
Speak for yourself. I've had my collagen this morning.
Yeah.
I've been on it for a week now, so honestly,
Okay.
I'm going to be like by next week I'll look about 12 years older.
Okay, so we're slightly less sprightly than usual. It's because we're recording at the other end of the day today, because our guest today is joining us from the sunny coast, Queensland in Australia. We will be touching base with him and getting going in a second. But if you are listening on the day of release as well, it is the 1st of August. So we are well and truly in the middle of summer here in England, in the UK. Mr. Peter Lant, how are you doing down in Bath? Are you okay?
I'm doing very well. I'm just listening to Sean's just feeding the dog while she's getting ready to go to work because it's early.
Okay.
Yeah,
And
good.
we've just been having a heat wave over here. It's been like sort of 30 degrees plus, like for the last week possibly, you know, and I've just got a bit of rain outside now, cooling everything down, which is nice. And this is going to be interesting because following on from last week's podcast with Jack Kirby from Essex Podiatry Clinics, talking all things feet and the foot and foot mechanics, we are joined today by Mr. Sam Stow, or Samuel Stow, from Australia, the creator of the Functional Step and Pop Running, an ultra endurance runner. And we're going to be talking a lot about running, well, maybe about running, but also how running can be fun and enjoyable and pain-free and all those kind of things.
No,
Yeah,
no, never.
yes. So how are you doing, Sam, today? You okay?
Yeah, I'm good, James. Thank you very much.
Excellent. So yeah, running. I mean, this podcast is Health Oddity. We talked to lots of different people about all different kinds of things. We have had ultra endurance and endurance people on before, but we cover kind of strength, power, mobility, diet, nutrition, lifestyle, habits, all this kind of thing. But running, I think, is probably something that everybody listening, or the vast majority of people listening, will have tried at some stage in their life to greater or lesser success, and to greater or lesser extent. What's your background, Sam, in terms of running and endurance? And I think you come from like more of a multi-sport background originally, like triathlons and kayaking and stuff like that. But yeah, kind of what's your background in running, and how did you come to do what you are today?
I don't know if I should give you a very long answer, but my background, I've been doing endurance sport, I guess you'd say, for over 20 years. I started in 2003 I started with 3 separate disciplines at the same time. So I started trail running / running, and then I did long distance cycling and swimming, open water swimming, because all of those were very popular in where I was living. So I started all of them separately, and then I decided, oh, well, I might as well do triathlon. So then I did triathlon, and then some friends got me into adventure racing. So I got into endurance adventure racing. And then I went into, more like triathlon, and then cycling, mountain biking, and I've been running as a primary focus for probably 10 years now.
Okay, fantastic. So I think I heard or watched on a previous podcast that you kind of were doing all these different events, and then when you had a kind of a child, and then you needed to, you had to kind of focus a little bit more. You couldn't be doing everything and be out for like hours and hours and hours every day doing things. So you decided to kind of niche down and focus on running, yeah?
Correct. Yeah, exactly. I've got a 9-year-old now, so his birth roughly coincides when I was focused on running.
Okay, excellent. And was running always one of the discipline out of all the different things that you've done and were doing? Why did you choose running as the one thing to focus on rather than swimming, for example? I mean, was running something that that resonated with you more, or was it just the ease of being able to, put your clothes on and just
Yeah.
go out of the door and do it rather than having to travel anywhere specific? Or
Yeah. Well, I used to do a lot of cycling, and so cycling was my primary sport for a long time. But, cycling's very time consuming because in order to get a good workout, ideally you probably want to be doing at least an hour and a half. Whereas running's a lot more efficient, from a time and accessibility perspective. I've even done barefoot running, so you don't need any equipment at all.
Mm.
And you can just step out your door and run. So just efficiency. And then obviously as it's evolved, I've gotten into off-road trail running, and I just love exploring, especially like trails and, getting into nature. So that's kind of become my thing.
Okay. Now, most people, I mean, this is quite funny that we're doing this today because yesterday I went out. I have done about maybe 10 marathons in the past, but a long time ago. Haven't
Mm.
done any running for years and years. And yesterday I went out for my first run in many years with my wife because we've signed up to like it's kind of like, it's not an outdoor adventure race, but it's kind of like almost like an outdoor high rocks thing where you do like a 1K run, then there's kind of a strength component, then another 1K run. So you've got all these 1K runs, they're outside around fields. So we ran out running yesterday, and I always used to run with Vibram's five fingers, last time I was running. And now
Yeah,
I'm
nice.
I'm probably 10 kilos heavier than I was then because I do a lot more strength training now, and I've been doing strongman comps and things. So I went running with my five fingers yesterday for the first time in in probably at least 5 years, and it nearly killed me to be honest. All the kind of stuff that
W-
I used to do because I've read Born to Run. I read there's a book called Slow Burn by Stu Mittelman, which I read.
Mm.
We've had Phil Maffetone, so I really got into the low heart rate and the barefoot kind of running and did used to find it really really good. But the heat, obviously, being in the 30 degrees over here and not doing it for ages and carrying more body weight, I found it so difficult. And I think that probably most people who start running try and go out and try and do too much too soon, a bit like I did yesterday again. Too much too soon, probably try and run too fast. And they come back from that first run and think, running's not for me. I don't, they somehow think that people who run naturally just find it easy from the first time they go out, and they kind of say there's this phrase, isn't there? So many people, we hear it all the time, I'm not a natural runner. Kind of the opposite. I wasn't born to run. So what's your kind of philosophy on, I suppose, if you had an overarching philosophy on running, or how you would try and help people find the joy in running? I mean, where do you start with someone who's starting from real basics again?
Yeah, well, it's pretty funny because I actually had a training session with a new client today, and he's 74, and his knees are buggered, and he's like, I don't think I'm ever going to run again. And so he just wants me to help him improve his movement generally, like he does martial arts and stuff. And I'm like, well, let's just start at the beginning and see where we go. And obviously, I didn't get him running today, but what I did with him and what I do with everybody is I go, okay, we're just going to work on your core activation, your glute activation, like understanding good posture, learning how to get power from your core and your glutes, and how to start generating propulsion from that. And it was really funny because it's the same with everybody. They're like, "Whoa, I've never felt that before. Like, what have I been doing? Like I do a lunge, but I don't feel my bum working." And so it's just helping people understand how to feel their body moving in the first place so that they're connected and they feel strong. And then learning how to move forward with that connection. And then just building up, power, rhythm and power. And, eventually you get the speed, but starting at the very beginning in a very slow, controlled way so that you actually understand what it's supposed to feel like before you are off to the races and trying to smash yourself and hit PBs and all that jazz?
Mm.
That's great because I love that. It's like where do you start? Because people say it's funny when James said that people say I'm not a natural runner. It's like, well, everyone is, aren't they? I mean, we're born to
Yeah,
walk and run and what have you. That's what we do. So everyone's a natural runner. It's because we just don't do it, right? So, but that's
yeah,
that's great because it's like and what James has alluded to as well is people will go, right, I'll start out small and do like 5 miles or something, especially people who used to run, and then it's like, well, that's actually, it's not like a stupid distance, but for someone who doesn't do it and doesn't feel their body in the way that they probably should. So I love that. You're like, where do you start? It's like, well, you don't start with running. You start with the mechanics of it first. You've got to learn to walk before you can run, all of those sorts of things. So it's like, I just find that fascinating. So, I mean, do you start like, how do you start everywhere with that? Or like, do you train people who do run kind of leisurely and have been doing it for years? Would you take them back to the beginning as well?
Yeah, I think I get those both varieties. I get ultra runners who are like they're already doing, 80 to 100K of training a week. And so obviously I can't tell them to stop running. But I still get them to feel the activations and everything first. And then I go, okay, well, we're going to do drills, ideally every day. And you can build this into your routine before you run. And that way, as you become more competent with them, it will start integrating more and more into your running.
Because I think that's the thing. It's kind of a bit of a paradox that people say, I'm not a natural runner. I wasn't born to run, but everyone kind of just thinks that they do know how to run, don't they? Like if they decide to do it, they just think, well, running, because it is a natural thing. What is there to it? You just go out and run. So you get people, they'll put on their training shoes that they maybe haven't worn for 20 years. Like Pete said, they'll walk out the door and just try and run. And they just think that somehow they're going to naturally be able to do it. So this the functional step, which you've got kind of behind you on your screen there, which is something that you created. What is that? Do you want to talk to us a little bit about that?
Yeah. And I'll back up and hit what you just said as a point, right? So if I look at my kids, and I've got one who's 4, so she's, I have a 7-year-old and a 9-year-old, but in particular, the 4-year-old, she's not learned anything yet, because she's just 4, but she runs beautifully. And I've always had them in barefoot shoes too, and they spend a lot of time being active. So, her running is amazing. And I'm like, I just want everyone to run like her, And so we all start out very well, especially we spend a lot of time barefoot, and we're lucky in Australia that we get to do that. Whereas as we get older, our lifestyles become very sedentary, and we spend a lot more time sitting and hunched over, and we get on our phone and our heads forward, and we're looking down, and so we end up in this sort of flexed state, which I'm sure you're very aware of. And we develop compensatory movement patterns based around our revised posture, because we're very adaptive. So we adapt to what we do all the time, and so we get into this hunched over forward posture, and we stop using half of our muscles, which are all the back muscles, right? Because if you're not standing up straight and sitting up straight and using, your back muscles by doing rows or swimming or whatever else, then those muscles become very like unused, and you don't naturally want to use them. So then when you start running, it's not natural for you to go and use those muscles. So even though running is a natural thing, for your body at that point in time, the way that you run is very different from the way my 4-year-old runs, do you know?
That's great, because Dan John, I mean, someone else might have said it as well, but Dan John talks about this, and he's like, these are the show muscles. Everyone's about like pecs and biceps and that. They're the go muscles at the back, aren't they? So that's what propels you forwards. But it's all kind of paradox. I mean, like I'll say this, but we can talk about this later on. But it's kind of like boosting forward, but it's paradoxical because they're the go muscles, but you kind of need to lean forwards a bit to be able to move forwards. But most people are spend their life in that lean, hunched over position. There was a guy I was speaking to yesterday, this week, and he was getting a sore lower back. He's got a sore knee and all that, and we figured it out. And his hip flexors just need it'll be more than that. But I was like, right, let's strengthen your hip flexors, right, and see what happens. So I gave him a couple of drills to do. The next day, I spoke to him, and he was like, it's starting to feel a bit better already. And I'm like, well, do more of it, because he'd said to me, I've got to get a better chair. Because he'd been to a physio, he was doing stretches and that the physio would give him and everything. And he was like, it's kind of, it works, but then it comes back. And I'm like, that's because you're sitting
Yeah.
these days, don't they? So
Mm.
so anyway, back to James's original question: what's the functional step?
Oh, okay, I won't go sidetracking again, but yeah, all right. So yeah, with the functional step, right? The idea is learning, because it's very counterintuitive that you want to move forward using muscles on the back of you, right? Like, how do you even do that? That's the thing, because it doesn't come naturally. The natural thing is I swing my leg out in front and then I step forward. But you end up kind of dragging yourself forward, because you bring your foot out in front and then you drag yourself up to your foot, right? Whereas with what I'm tracking with the functional step, we're kind of doing it's like a reverse lunge, right? And that's the wind up piece where you're actually loading the spring. And then you're pushing off of that spring and leaning forward. And that's what's giving you forward momentum. So it's using your kind of natural, like human spring mechanics to load yourself up, and then using the big, powerful muscles in your core and your bum to generate that forward propulsion combined with gravity. Because if you just didn't lean forward, then you would just go straight back up again,
So if you imagine then, if you can explain it so so the functional step is not a piece of equipment. It is an exercise that or drill that you teach people with some of the stuff we do through Strong First. They say the drill teaches the skill, so it's a drill to then teach you the skill to then improve your running. So if you're stood upright, if I'm stood upright with both feet together, I step 1 foot behind me in like a reverse lunge. And do I lower that back knee to the floor or?
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
very importantly, you need to be doing a reverse lunge properly, because sometimes if you tell someone to do a reverse lunge, they'll do what they think is a reverse lunge and it will look something like a reverse lunge, but they might not have their core engaged. They might bend their knee forward. They'll put the load into their quads and in their calves. They might even push off the ball of their foot. And so that when they're doing it, they're not using their core or their glutes,
So I suppose the focus then when you come back up is the focus all about using that front leg to drive you back up rather than, like you say, pushing off of that back leg to bring you up. Is that correct?
Yeah,
Yeah.
100%. The
Yeah.
way the focus is on your bum, the front leg bottom,
Glute. Yeah, yeah,
whatever you
yeah,
want to
yeah,
call
yeah,
it,
yeah, yeah, yeah,
and
yeah,
core,
yeah.
those two things, your core and
Mm,
your glutes,
mm,
getting that propulsive power.
mm. Excellent.
Yeah.
And how long would you normally spend with someone teaching them? I suppose it depends how long it takes them to get it and to feel it.
Yes. Yeah.
And then before you move on to the next stage, yeah.
Yeah, well, the last couple of days I've done sessions with, people, and the guy today is 74, lady yesterday, probably late 50s. And I
Mm,
spent an hour just teaching them how to get their glutes and their core activated, how to isolate them and feel the connection to them, and
mm,
then using them into squats and lunges and then driving up and getting that forward propulsion. So
mm,
about an hour I spent with someone like that, but I've had elite athletes and I can spend half an hour, I can get through everything and get them into dynamic power and running drills. So it very much depends on where their starting point is.
mm. And I think we'll give people later towards the end of the podcast, but I think you've got a website, haven't you, where people can go and they can maybe download or access all the
Hmm.
information about your kind of glute activation stuff and the functional step and your book and all the rest of it, which would be really great. So in terms of running, then, where do you um, is it as simple as saying heel striking, midfoot striking, forefoot striking? Is everybody different the way they run? Do you have a preferred technique? What about footwear? All this kind of stuff. Because when people start running, when we had the podiatrist on last week, he said that he feels that podiatrists in general have an over reliance, or they're very, very quick to um, prescribe, orthotics in shoes or a new pair of running shoes to kind of fix problems that probably, there's more stuff going on rather than just giving people. It's like going to the doctor and just being given a pill to fix something that, your lifestyle could maybe do if you change some things. So maybe can we talk a little bit about that? Because this is something everyone would have done, I'm sure. Again, been to a running shop, being told, oh, you're overpronating, you're supinating, you need this type of shoe, you need this much cushioning, all that kind of thing. Yeah, what's your view, or where do you stand on all this kind of stuff?
Well, there's a lot of marketing out there, and people like to be sold immediate solutions to problems. But unfortunately, from my perspective, everything that is an immediate solution is usually a band-aid. So you're just trying to mask the problem, and usually that might solve the immediate problem, but then it will kind of pop up somewhere else. Do you know what I mean?
Mm,
But I do think that there is a place for pronation support while you're learning how to move and be stronger and be better, to not overload, because in particular with pronation support, it's stopping your foot from rolling in, and that's going to stop overloading in your foot muscles and also in the peroneal tendon and various other things, right? So there's a place for that, but I think that over reliance on that in place of learning how to move better and become stronger is a mistake. And I also think that, like, the tendency towards nice cushioned shoes that feel nice and comfy is fine, but unfortunately, like, they're just going to make you weaker and weaker over time because you're using less and less muscles and you're relying more on the shoe. So my approach is to say, well, you can wear your padded shoes, but we also want to make sure you train in less padded, more proprioceptor awareness style shoes, barefoot or Vivos, but not like going for your long runs in them, but just building that sort of foot strength and foot awareness and that movement awareness, so that you become less reliant on the whatever that thing is over time.
mm,
So people get sold a quick solution. And in your experience, so this, I mean, it'll be different for different people, but in your experience, how long does it take? So let's say someone overpronates or whatever. I'm saying overpronates because that's the one that most people do, in that you hear in the running shops when they go, I said it last week, didn't they? They go, oh, you're overpronating. What you need to do is buy this really expensive pair of shoes here. Right? So there's that. But that'll not fix the problem. And it's kicking the can down the road or whatever. There'll be something later on in a year's time or whatever. So it's a quick solution, but it doesn't solve the problem. How long does it take to solve the problem in your experience? How many days, weeks, months from when you get someone who comes in to teaching them like the functional step, teaching them how to use their glutes and their core? Does it happen like in a matter of days, weeks, months? Like, how long does it take? Because where I'm going here is, you buy the shoe, in a year's time, there's going to be another problem. So you'll have to buy a different shoe and a different shoe and a different shoe, as opposed to sorting the problem out over like 3 months. And then you don't have to worry about that in a year's time. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, it again depends on the starting point, but I've had people get results overnight. Like
Right.
it's
mm,
like literally, like, you should have seen. I'm actually going to post a social media of this guy on my socials soon, because it was very funny. But like, just that it's an education. So we're actually learning skills, and like, some of these things happen very quickly. And what I've also found is that when you actually move in a way that feels better and your body feels stronger, then your body is kind of just like, okay, that's good. I'm going to do that more because that feels better, you know? So you're
yeah.
Mm.
moving away from pain, and you're like, well, why would I not do that? Now that I know I can do that, I'm just going to do that? So,
Mm,
like, literally, it can flick a switch sometimes. But so my dad is a good case, because he is 71. He tore his calf pushing a boat, and he was pushing from his calves, obviously, which is why he tore his calf, because he had no core, no glute awareness. So
mm,
with him, I taught him how to activate his glutes and gave him some exercises and got him to do that for a week. And it was amazing that he actually got proper glute control and awareness after a week. And then it took me about another 5 days to teach him how to move using the functional step, and he practiced walking around. So for him, going from like no glute awareness to walking around using his core and glutes took about, I don't know, 12 to 14 days.
Mm. Like you say, if it's sometimes it's giving people that awareness, isn't it? Because there's a term called gluteal amnesia, isn't there? That people we
Yeah.
sit down so much and we're in this kind of 90-degree flexion at the hip and then 90-degree flexion at the knee, and the most people just don't know how to even. Well, to be honest, the majority of the population, like 80, more than 80, 85, 90% of the population do no kind of, well, certainly in this country anyway, do no physical exercise or activity at all. So they literally go from sitting at the desk at work to sitting on a sofa at home to sitting in a car. They never do that. I mean, I think activity is a bit more societally embedded in Australia. Is that right, or is that me just is
No, yeah. Yeah,
yeah.
like my parents, so we're from the UK originally, and my parents are very English, and so
Mm,
they actually went back to visit the UK in the last few weeks,
mm,
and they noticed that as a general observation, a lot of the people their age in the UK were a lot less physically
mm,
well and physically capable compared to their counterparts in Australia. So it definitely is a thing. And one thing I also will say is that I think it's a bit of a chicken and egg situation in that if moving is painful, then you're not going to be inclined to do more of it, you know?
mm,
Whereas if you understand how to move without pain and feel strong, then you're more likely to go, well, actually, if that feels good, I'm going to do more of it, you know?
mm. No, that's
That's
yeah.
that's great as well, because I think certainly over here, and in my own experience of, I mean, this is years ago now, but getting into my early mid 30s and then being like, right, things are starting to get sore. So I'm going to have to do some strength training or something, but they're not necessarily doing it correctly, and ended up with a sore shoulder and like sore knees and hips because I was sitting down all day at work and things like that. It's like all of a sudden I feel old at like 35, So then that's where it's the thing of, do you get old because you stop, or do you stop because you get old? It's all these paradoxes that are around, all these cliches and all these sayings and everything like that. And it's like, everyone gets old and everyone declines. And we talk about this a lot on this podcast as well. Everyone declines, but you can slow the decline, and you can actually even get stronger and increase that if you're going from a base level of not being very strong anyway, or not being very
Mm,
fit, or whatever it is. So you can do that in your 40s, 50s, 60s. So it's never too late. So that's interesting, because it's like you said, just in your parents' observation of seeing that, and they say people their similar age over here is different, but then we can blame it on the weather, we can blame it on whatever, and it's like, no, it's just laziness. We're in a small country and we drive everywhere. Like you said,
Yeah,
me and James are 3 hours away from each other, right, by car or train or whatever. It's like, that's not very far. But in this country it is,
yeah.
but everywhere is accessible. So
mm.
yeah.
Would you say, Sam, I mean,
It,
talking about things from, like you say, if we are starting with people who are unconditioned, deconditioned, uh, in a bad way, kind of physically, would you get people walking first before, if someone's doing nothing at the moment, someone's not training at the moment, someone's not doing any exercise, is the first step to get those daily steps up? So they're walking, maybe, if they're not doing much, they may be walking 8, 10,000 steps a day. um, get them on their feet, get them on their legs? Or would you even start doing some of this glute activation and functional step stuff before they even start walking, because that's going to help? What would
No, yeah, I think it's very much the same with the running. If
you?
someone's running 80 to 100 kilometers a week, I'm not going
Mm,
to stop them doing it.
mm,
It's just that if as you practice the movements, it gets easier. So the same
mm,
thing with the walking, and that's what I said to the client today, is like,
mm,
now that you've got this skill and this awareness, practice it every day and think about it when you're walking. So try and integrate it more. And it happens that way, because you are
mm,
aware more of those muscles, and as you become more aware, it just becomes your body's default, as I said, because
mm,
it feels better anyway. So why wouldn't you do it?
mm. And there's things I've seen and read before as well, where, because obviously in this country, and again, probably not to as much of an extent, I know certainly in America, but not to much, maybe as much of an extent in Australia, but the kind of levels of sort of overweight and obesity and things like that with people, I've heard people say before that, you know, you shouldn't use running to, and I know it's about calorie deficit and calorie balance, it's more than the activity, obviously, but you shouldn't use running to help you lose weight, because if you are overweight, certainly very overweight, you're then trying to run and you're putting so much weight and load and force through, back, hips, knees, ankles, feet. So you should try and kind of lose weight before you start running, or can overweight people go into running if they've got the right mechanics?
Yeah, I think another exercise that I really like using to help people really feel strong and when they're moving is the farmer's carry. When
Mm,
you've got a farmer's carry, you're holding a couple of kettlebells down by your side and you're trying to walk with that. And it's a really good illustration of whether you're using like strong mechanics or not. Because if you try and walk with that and you don't use like pushing from your glutes and your core and you're just lifting your foot, then every time you lift your foot, gravity is going to suck you towards the ground until you put your foot back down. And it feels like a real effort.
mm,
Whereas if you actually can then actually use the weights to give you something to push against, like when you're running up a hill and you're actually bracing through your core and pushing through your glutes, then you're feeling strong. You're actually pushing against the force in a strong way. And then when you come back down, gravity is loading you back up so you can then push again. So it's a
mm,
much more stronger action. So the same thing applies to someone who's heavier. They can use that same principle to push against their weight rather than it being like every time they take a step, their weight is pulling them back into the ground?
mm. Okay, so I mean, do you train yourself? Have you trained kind of like overweight runners and things like that with quite good success, or and then obviously, ideally, yourself, I know that you run kind of ultra distances like 100 kilometers and things like that. Obviously, when you're
Yeah.
doing stuff like that, you want to have as little ballast as possible. That's kind of, you want to be as you want to be as light as you can. You don't want to be carrying any unnecessary weight when you're actually looking at performance and distance running and things like that. But just at a kind of a lower level, maybe people building up to running 5Ks and things like that. Have you you've had good success with people? Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I've got a couple of things to say. One is, yeah,
Okay.
I've definitely had like a client, multiple clients who are overweight who have taught to run more strongly, and then they suddenly find that they can run a lot longer with a lot less effort, and they enjoy it and they can run more, which is
Mm.
great. And then the other thing I wanted to say is I actually have a world record for distance run carrying a 10-kilo weight vest. So I ran
Okay.
156 kilometers in 23 hours with a 10-kilo weight vest on.
Wow, because I was going to say, because I saw on your Instagram you've got like 5 world
What?
records, haven't you? So you did.
Yeah,
So that's nearly 100 miles, isn't it? Because it's
In
100.
23 hours?
yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So yeah, because I said, didn't I? Don't you don't want to run with a lot of extra ballast, and you intentionally put on an extra 10 kilo
Yeah.
ballast. Yeah. Okay. So that's nearly 100 miles in 23 hours wearing a 10 kilo weight vest. Okay. And what's your body weight without the vest on?
Race fit around 75 kilos.
75 kilos. Okay, okay. Wow. That's amazing. What are some of the other world records that you've got? Are there other things that are
What? I
equally
got
as
four
equally as
records in
crazy?
one day. That was
Okay.
like, it's like a bit cheeky that I've got five, but I got four in one day. So that 23-hour one was one, and then I got 100K record for running with 10-kilo weight vest on, and also the 50K record. And then I created a new one, which is like most laps of a backyard ultra wearing a 10-kilo weight vest.
And was that all? And was the most laps of a backyard ultra wearing a weight vest part of the same one as well?
Yes, it was
That
a
was all
backyard
part of this, all
ultra.
all in. Yeah. Wow. Wow.
And then, so just to finally answer your question, the fifth one I actually got ages ago, and I was running a marathon barefoot on a manual treadmill.
Oh Christ! So not an electric treadmill that's driving you at all. That's your every foot
No,
you're
it's like
having
a
to turn the
curved
belt.
treadmill.
Yeah, you're
Yeah,
turning the belt. Yeah. God, a marathon with no shoes on a curved treadmill. Right.
yeah,
Okay. How? Oh, that's. This is going to go off in a slight tangent, but I think
yeah.
but like I say, we take this where it goes. Um, what what's your view on? I've seen you on your Instagram running on the curved treadmill before. What's your view
Hmm.
on those? Are they because I run a gym and I've got a few treadmills and I was looking recently at thinking down the line, oh, maybe in the next 6 months or the next 12 months, I'll probably need to replace some of this equipment. And I know that they're very kind of, you see them a lot now. And I presume
Hmm.
that's are they all manual drive ones? You just start running on them and then you,
Not all of them.
no.
Yeah, so I think I can't remember the Woodway, I think, make one
Yes.
with a they've got like a momentum thingo. What are those things called? The spin wheels. So
Oh, okay.
basically you can go up.
Like a flywheel, like on a
Yeah, a
spin bike or
flywheel,
something.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So some of them have flywheels in so that once you get them moving, they can keep themselves moving, which
Mm,
I think is not ideal. So, but the reason that the curved treadmills are so good is it's like running up a hill. You know, like that's literally the physical principle behind how they work, right? Because if you
mm,
stand on the hill, you slide back down and then you just get back up on the hill and you drive back, and that's how the curve works, right? So
mm.
that's great because it means that every time you land, you're pushing to move yourself forward. And if you try and run on them and you just swing your leg out and put your foot down, what you often find, and this is why most people hate running on them, is your leg swings out behind you and you lose your balance and you're like, well, this sucks, do you know?
Mm,
So they
mm.
actually reinforce good mechanics. Whereas if you are running on a flat motorized treadmill, all you've got to do is lift your foot out, swing it out, and then let the motor carry you back again.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
you can run with poor mechanics. So that's why a curved treadmill is actually, that's why I teach them using it, because it's a
Mm.
really good way of reinforcing good mechanics. They're like running up a hill.
And is it also
Also, on those flat ones, they put handles on the side and everything, so people hold on to them.
Yeah.
And it's like, what? Like, try and do that outside.
And
Yeah.
is there something to do with the curve? Because obviously it's curved like a banana almost. So it's curved up at the front and it's curved up at the back. Does it also
Yeah.
kind of help you with that kind of foot turnover? And well, I suppose, like you say, it can, if you use it wrongly, it can kind of help you in the wrong way, and it can enforce bad mechanics. But does it kind of, if once you know how to use it, it helps you with your foot turnover and bringing your heel maybe up behind you, up towards your bum at the back and that sort of thing.
Yeah, I don't know exactly what the principle is behind the back bit, but I have found that's quite useful because you kind of, like for me, it's like focusing on keeping your big toe on the ground and letting that sort of go out behind you.
Mm,
Uh, but yeah, it's like, they use them at the NFL in America, like the gridiron. They
mm,
have like ones with turf on them, and they put them like freestanding with the turf on the sideline so that the gridiron players can warm up on them.
mm,
And the good thing about them is because there's no motor, you can run as fast or as slow as you want. So you can go from stationary to 30k an hour in like
mm.
5 seconds, you know? So
So
that's why
yeah,
they're
I've
really
seen them
great.
do that accelerate, almost how fast you can accelerate, isn't it? Because like you say, you can go from a standing start to a flat out sprint, probably as quickly as you can on the ground, can't you? From what I've seen,
Yeah.
some of these American football players, yeah. Oh, that's
Mm.
fantastic. Oh, that's worth thinking about it. And are they good to walk on as well? Or
Yeah, yeah, and
yeah.
again, this is where like what I'm teaching, I teach mechanics that apply to walking and running.
Mm,
So as long as you understand the mechanics for walking, then you can apply it when you're walking too, and the treadmill will help you with that too.
mm, mm,
So I would say as a gym owner,
mm,
there's a functional gym that I go to that's got four of them. I
mm,
think that they're great, especially if you have a good understanding of the principles behind why they're good, because a lot of people, if they don't have any education, they'll avoid them like the plague because they're
mm.
like, that's really not fun.
Yeah, yeah. And do you ever come over to the UK? Do you ever come over to England or?
Yeah, I've got cousins and aunts and uncles there that I'd still like to visit, so I'd definitely come over when I can.
I was going to say maybe it will sort you. You can come and do a workshop or something at the gym and show me how to use it.
Yeah, I'd
And then
love
when
to,
you're over,
100%.
yeah.
I'd love
Okay.
to.
Yeah, no, that's great. So in terms of your own running now, like you said, you've got these 5 world records, and do you still do ultra running yourself? I mean, do you still? I saw you were doing like 10Ks and thing, but do you still go and do 100Ks, 100K pluses? Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, I did so that last weekend was a really big race that they have here in Queensland. It's called Dead Cow Gully. And so it's a backyard ultra and
What do you
the
mean
you
by
know the
that? Can you just
backyard
explain? Yeah, I was just gonna say, can you just explain for us and the listeners
so
what that is?
yeah, it may not have taken off in the UK yet, but it's big in America, it's big in Australia, and I think parts of Europe it's big as well. And basically, the idea about a backyard ultra is every hour there's a 6K circuit that you run on, and you've got to complete a lap within the hour, and then you've got to be in the starting corral as the bell goes to start the next lap every hour. So any time between when you finish that lap and the start of the next lap, you can recover and refuel and whatever. And you basically just keep going until you're done, right? And
Mm.
so the world record was just set a week ago at Dead Cow Gully. They ran 119 hours. So that was
Well, so you just
almost
keep
five,
going for as long as you can on that 6K an hour pattern, yeah?
6.7. Yeah, and the
6.7K,
reason
yeah.
behind the distance is that it's actually 4.17 miles, which multiplied by 24 is 100 miles. So you're
Right.
covering 100 miles a day. And yeah, that's what you do. And so I
So,
was there.
whoa.
I
Six
think
point seven times. Let's see if I'm doing this right. 6.7 times 119 because
Yes.
it's 119 hours
Yeah.
divided by 1.6. That's nearly 500 miles.
Yes, correct.
For the poor book, 498.3125
Yeah,
miles.
because
It's like,
if
ah,
he'd done 120, then he would have done what's it? If he'd done
500
120,
miles.
he would have done 500 miles exactly.
Oh man.
500. Wow. And
he
presumably,
obviously he
obviously, there's.
obviously wasn't using his glutes enough. That's
No,
that's
well,
very
no. He was able to keep going. The reason that these backyard ultras stop is the second last person stops, right? Because the last person can't keep going by himself. That's why it's like a last man standing thing. So
Ah,
literally, the guy who won, Phil Gore, he looked like he could have run another week. And he ran the last lap in 33 minutes, which is like 5 minute Ks or 8 minute miles.
so because I think there's something I have. Well, Pete, who was it we had on the guys from what was it called? Summit
Summit
Mentality.
mentality. They're doing
Um,
that this
they
weekend or
do
something.
they
Yeah.
do that, and I think is it something to do with David Goggins is kind of like involved with
Oh,
that.
the
Um,
48-hour thing.
uh,
Yeah.
oh yeah, that's a different one. So David Goggins has a challenge, and I did this one too.
Okay.
It's 4x4x48.
Oh,
So
that's
the
it.
four
Yeah.
by four to 48 is you run 4 miles every 4 hours for 48 hours. So
Yeah.
you end up running, I can't remember, it's like 80K or like 50 miles or something.
Yeah, because I thought it sounded it's a similar concept, but different. But yeah, those guys did do the David Goggins one every year. Yeah. So okay,
Yeah.
and did you do that event last weekend?
Yeah. Unfortunately, I think I had a bit of a bug. I ended up having a bad stomach and I ran like super low on energy. So I stopped after 15 laps, which was 100K.
Wow, so you still did 100K, yeah, last weekend.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay.
But yeah, because you weren't at your best.
And
Yeah.
and what in terms of running? Because I know you mentioned that you've done, I know born to run and barefoot running. You mentioned and things like that. So you obviously do you still when you're doing these races and you're out running these big distances, are you wearing cushion shoes? What? Yeah, what's the kind of how are you running now, footwear wise and style wise? I suppose.
Yeah. I always wear flat shoes. Like I never wear shoes that have got that heel offset,
So it's like a
like
zero
heel toe
drop
offset.
kind of thing. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
So Ultra, ALTRA, those shoes, they coined zero drop, and
Mm,
they're the ones that I wear for all my running.
mm,
And when I'm not running, I wear Vivos,
mm,
so Vivo barefoot, but
mm.
I don't use them for running like long distances because just that sort of like that undulation of terrain and that sort of like little bit of work in your foot, that adds up pretty quick, I find. So the padding kind of helps even that out so that you
Mm.
don't get like completely fatigued feet over longer distances. And also between rocks, like if you hit a rock and you've got no padding under your foot, it hurts. So,
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, because I've been using those. Like I say, I always ran in those five fingers. I think the furthest I ran in the five fingers was about 18 miles, but it was, yeah, it's, yeah. I mean, I'll have to look at those shoes then that you said. I'll have a look at those ones that are, and how much have they got underneath them in terms of, so they're zero.
it varies. Yeah, it
Um,
varies depending on the model. They do
yeah,
have maximalist versions, so they've got
yeah,
shoes that are sort of 35 millish
mm,
of stack. But
yeah,
I prefer the minimal ones, so I prefer sort of 20 to 25 mil,
yeah,
which is not quite as high a stack because I still like the proprioception and the ground feel because
yeah,
I think that that's important. Whenever I'm teaching anyone like mechanics and like posture and all these things, I'm sure you're aware, being barefoot or as close to it is best because then you can feel the activation. And
mm,
the point that I made earlier about, for example, like the cushion shoes,
mm,
is that it dulls the senses, so your body doesn't get as much chance to respond, and those forces end up being transferred further into your body before you've
mm.
even had a chance to register that they're there. Do you know?
Mm. Yeah, no, so I was going to say, because obviously, so when you're not running, like you say, I know Pete is only owns Vivo barefoot shoes. I know at the gym I've just always got my shoes off. So people come to my gym and they're like, if they're coming the first time, they're looking around thinking, why has no one got why has no one got trainers? We do
Yeah.
everything. So deadlifting, squatting, lunging, every just training. I just have my shoes off the whole time. Um,
Mm.
so because I think so, yeah. When you're not, and like you mentioned, your children living a very barefoot lifestyle, just playing in the garden and whatever, just no shoes on, which is
Mm.
great. Um,
I find it's funny because like the barefoot shoes, it was the when we talked to Jack last week,
mm,
the podiatrist, and the funny thing, because I wear pretty much exclusively Vivos because I just really like them. They're easy to get a hold of here, and they work for me. Um,
Mm.
and I know there's lots of others around. That's the ones I found, and like if I find any better ones, I'll wear those. But I like those. But it's interesting because he was saying, not it doesn't work for everybody because not everyone moves like how they should or how they want to, but like people have, they have tightness and stuff like that. So you kind of need to um ease yourself into them for some people.
Mhm.
I forgot what I was going to say, but no, this was it because you were talking to Steve from Zero. Is it Steve?
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
Steve Sasson, yeah.
and it was interesting because I heard him on another podcast ages ago, and he was talking about and you just said it as well about like the cushioning on shoes takes away the proprioception. So by the time your body's realized what's going on, it's already somewhere in your body, right, like outside of your foot, getting the actual sensation of what's going on.
Hmm.
And he used the example of like if you bounce a sponge ball off the floor, you'll drop it from there and it'll bounce about that high. If you drop a
Hmm.
tennis ball, you'll drop it from this height and it'll bounce back to about that height because some of the energy is getting absorbed or like it's transferring into the ground or whatever, so it'll only bounce back this
Mm.
high. But if you drop
Mm.
like a steel bearing onto a steel plate, it'll bounce back pretty much as high as it was.
Yeah.
So what's happening there is with the cushioned shoes is every time you strike the ground, there's all this like the energy is just being dispersed all over the place and it's not coming back up into your body. So you're just leaking energy. And we talk about it in strength a lot with joints and stuff like that. Without, I mean, everyone's got a different technique, but without a certain amount of technique, you're leaking energy all over the place. Right. And in
Mm.
strength work, that might be on 5 reps, but on ultra running, that's across 100 miles, so
Mm.
I find that really interesting that people, the, they tend to go, again, it's like the fast fix, isn't it? And they tend to go the opposite way. They're like, right, this hurts and this hurts. So therefore I need more cushioning. And then now it's hurting more, so I need more cushioning. It's like, how high can a shoe go? Like off the ground, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
mm,
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah. So what, obviously with the functional step and stuff like that, you're teaching people to use their glutes and use the ground
Hmm.
and their motion because, you were talking about this on that podcast as well, and I hear this a lot. And I actually said it to a guy, and I'm not a running coach or anything, but he does park run, and he tries to win it every week. He tries to win park run every week, and he's like 58 or something like that. And I'm like, I watched him do some running, just back and forwards in front of me. I said, "Go on," and he was overstepping and dragging himself forwards. So, what's like? How do you? In your experience, what is that very common as well? Because I think people think a longer stride gets them further in one go, so therefore they have to do fewer. But there's and I mean, Phil Maffetone spoke about this. There's a certain amount. It's like it's you want to be kind of, like you say, using your front leg to drive off, don't you, rather than pulling you forward.
Yeah. Basically, you're right with that kind of ball analogy, and I use a similar analogy a lot too, is that like I compare it to if you think about a ball that's deflated and you try and bounce it, it doesn't bounce, right? And my analogy is if your core is not engaged, you're like a deflated ball, so you don't bounce, right? But if your core is engaged and everything is working biomechanically well, then you will bounce, right? Because like our body is a very complicated sort of system, but it's a lot of basically rubber bands. Do you know what I mean? And the bones kind of like provide the structure for the rubber bands to kind of stretch and then recoil. So the rubber bands are like the tendons and the fascia around our muscles. So if you actually are running biomechanically well, then you're getting elastic energy every time you hit the ground and take back off again. And so it's kind of like if you can actually get your whole body working biomechanically efficiently, then your body does the absorption of the impact for you. And that's where like why I love running barefoot, because you can feel it all happening, like real time, because there's nothing else there. So I like running barefoot on really smooth surfaces because everything works fine. And if everything was like a super smooth surface, I wouldn't wear shoe cushioning at all, do you know? But on trails, that's not the case. But yeah, like that's my take, is like I want to teach people how to use the springs in their body. And like you've got probably three arches, I think it is, I can't remember, in your feet, right? And then you've got your whole body as a spring in the sagittal plane, like front to side on. And then you've also got the torsional plane, where if you're twisting, there's actually a bounce back effect of that rotation, So you can actually use all of those to your advantage, and you can get a lot of elastic energy, which makes your running so much more efficient.
That's great, because Jack said something about the three arches last week as well, which was great.
He did.
You've just reminded me of another analogy using a ball, and I can't remember who it was who said this. It might have been Tim Anderson, might have been Original Strength. But if you get a ping pong ball, right? What you're hitting it like, I think he said wiffle ball or whatever, but you're using a ping pong ball and you're hitting it. They break very easily because the structure is hollow. So all of the energy you're hitting goes around the ball and not through the middle because there's nothing there. Whereas if you take a cricket ball, Australian, you're better at. Well, are you better at cricket than us? I don't know anything about cricket, but
I'm not following.
we were very good back in the day, like colonizing places, teaching them sport, and then getting them to beat us. But anyway, using a cricket ball as an example, you hit that, and much more power goes through the ball because it's solid. So actually, you can hit it further and all of that sort of stuff, because it's like, it doesn't break as easily because like you haven't just got the frail bit around the edge, you've got the whole lot in the middle as well. And that's how he was talking about the core. If you're not using your core, you're just using your edges, and then it breaks easily. Whereas if you're using the core, the amount of power that can go through that is fantastic. So I love that analogy as well.
Yeah, that's good.
Excellent. Right. I think, Sam, we'll start to wrap up because we've been going for nearly an hour. And it's been really interesting talking to you. And we haven't actually talked about pop running, which is the other logo on the top. Can you what's pop running? Just give us a quick. Can you give us a quick one?
Well, I guess like it comes from the whole thing that we were just talking about, like the elastic component, right? So the pop is that sort of elastic bounce back and that power that comes primarily from your bum, right? So that's where I got the pop from. So it's like, people talk about having pop in their running because when they land, they're immediately popping back off the ground, and that's coming from that engagement and that core and that glute power that's pushing you back up again.
Excellent. Now, I mean, that has been really, really interesting. I know we haven't gone, massively into depth with some things, or we have gone into depth on others, but I'm sure that lots of people will be really interested to kind of know more, find out more, follow you. Because we do have lots of people. Like I say, running is one of the most popular kind of activities for people in the UK, in England. London Marathon is like one of the biggest marathons in the world, and it's a massive thing over here, running. But how do people get more information? Maybe get your book, maybe find out more about the functional step, learn more from you. Where would you like people to go?
Yeah, well, if they go to my website, poprunning, all one word, .com.au, then there's options. You can go to the middle option, which is to get my book bundle. It's only like $5 American. And in the book bundle, you get the book, you get some videos that sort of explain everything as well, and also a glute activation workshop. So that's pretty good. There's also a free ebook option on there as well, and then they can also reach out to contact me. I'm also on Instagram. My Instagram handle is sam.poprunning. So yeah, I'm active on there.
They're the two best places. So it's poprunning.com.au. Yeah, is the website. Yeah, fantastic. No, that's been really, really interesting. And I will, I'm going to be running a couple of times a week. And probably next time, I think it was a combination of the extreme heat yesterday, me not running for so long, and a bit of everything yesterday. But it was bloody hard work. But no, that's fantastic. I'm going to do that. I'm going to go onto your site today and sort that out. That'll be really good. Thank you so much, Sam. And like I say, if we will stay in touch now, this episode on the 1st of August. Okay, so we'll send you all the links and everything to share it out and put it wherever you want to, which would be fantastic.
Absolutely.
Then the other thing, like I say, we'll stay in touch, and if you ever do come over to England in the future, I might try and connect with you and do some stuff with you when you're over, which would be great. Yeah,
absolutely, I'm down for that.
Brilliant. Okay, thank you so much, everybody, for watching and listening. That has been episode 257. Please like, share, subscribe, leave a review if you're watching or listening on a platform that allows you to do so, especially if you're on Apple Podcasts. We will be back next week with episode 258 with Andrea Thompson, who is former world's strongest woman and world's strongest master now. She's over 40. We'll be back with Andrea. She's very different to Sam in terms of her stature.
We'll not be talking about running.
She's quite short. She's like a tank, isn't she? But we'll be on.
Whoa, easy, Jay. I'll cut that.
I mean, powerful, like a powerhouse. Yeah. So we'll be on with Andrea. We'll be on with Andrea next week. Thank you so much, Sam.
Thank you, guys. Thanks, Peter. Thanks, James, for having me. I really appreciate it.
Brilliant. And we will see you all next week. Until then, bye-bye.
You've been listening to Health Odyssey with Peter Lant and James St. Pierre. To get your regular fix of hype-free health, you can subscribe and leave a review wherever you get your favorite podcasts. You can find out more on today's and other topics at healthodyssey.com or find us on Facebook or Instagram by searching for Health Odyssey.